Operation K. This was the code name given by the Japanese to a mission, where a long-range Emily H-8 flying boat was flown from either Wake Island or the Marshall Islands to French frigate Shoals. There it would meet up with replenishment submarines and overfly Hawaii to either bomb or do reconnaissance. French frigate Shoals is an atoll. It lies midway between Hawaii to the southeast and Midway to the northwest. The Emily did not have the range to make it to Hawaii and back non-stop, so this made a perfect refueling point. Flying out of the Marshall Islands over 1,300 miles of open water navigation, the airplane would land on the water and join up with replenishment submarines. It would then continue on to the Hawaiian Islands, fly its reconnaissance mission, and return to the Marshall Islands non-stop. The submarine that first arrived was the I-121. But unfortunately, when it got there, it found American warships at French frigate Shoals. Two seaplane tenders, the USS Ballard and the USS Thornton, were there and apparently were there to stay. When the second submarine showed up the next day, an American destroyer had joined them. It was obvious to the Japanese that Operation K would have to be canceled, so the Japanese were blind as to the whereabouts of the American aircraft carriers. The Americans had set up a search arc reaching out 700 miles from Midway, from the north to the west to the southwest. It was only a matter of time before American patrol planes would find the Japanese wherever they were. And sure enough, on the morning of June 3rd, Ensign Jim Lyle had the privilege of being the first American to spot Japanese ships in the Battle of Midway. These were minesweepers of Captain Miyamoto's group. They were out well ahead of the Japanese transport force. It was only a short while after that another PBY Catalina, flown by Ensign Jewel Reed, spotted Admiral Tanaka's transport force itself. Reed became famous for sending the two-word report, main body, and the myth of Midway is that that was all he said. However, Reed and his crew, at substantial risk to themselves, continued to fly around, orbit, and get more data on the transport force. This information was sent to headquarters, where it was determined that although this was not the main body, it was a target worthy of hitting. The Air Force was tasked with sending out B-17 bombers to hit these ships. The Navy, not wanting to be left out, also tasked 4 PBY Catalinas to go out and hit them that night. The Air Force got in the first blows. Dropping bombs on Admiral Tanaka's force, he caught the force almost completely off guard. However, no hits were scored. That night, the 4 Catalinas, equipped with a borrowed British anti-surface vessel radar, has managed to find Tanaka's transport force. They were each armed with a Mark 13 Mod 1 aerial torpedo. These 4 aircraft would attempt to torpedo the transport force. After this, the aircraft would have to turn around and fly the 500 miles back to Midway at night over water with only the most rudimentary of navigational equipment on board. As implausible as it may seem, the PBY Catalinas carried out their job exactly the way they were supposed to. They managed to find Tanaka's force and even successfully torpedo it. Ensign Gaylord Probst launched his Mark 13 Mod 1 torpedo and hit the Japanese oiler Akebono Maru. The torpedo detonated, causing serious damage to the ship and killing at least 10 of its crew. Of course, after the torpedo detonated, the supporting ships opened up on the Catalinas with everything they had. One of the Catalinas was never able to get the right angle to make its drop. All 4 airplanes had to turn back for Midway, one still carrying its torpedo. Despite this successful attack, the night was long from over for these gentlemen. They could not know it at the time, but Ensign Gaylord Probst had just conducted the only successful American torpedo attack of the Battle of Midway. Not surprisingly, both Japanese and American pilots were all roused out of their beds at roughly the same time for the day's battle. The Americans sent up a combat air patrol over Midway and then launched more bombers under the command of Lieutenant Colonel Walter Sweeney to go hit Tanaka's transport force again. And now, the real battle begins. And now, Nimitz's buildup of Midway was about to pay off.